Super. It says live. Okay, it should be working. Can you see me? Yeah, it actually says 0 viewers. Yeah. Yep. Now I think I can see myself. Everything looks good. So are we on? Okay, perfect. Awesome. Thanks, Ed. Cool. Okay, perfect. So, hi everyone. Excited to be here. Thank you so much for joining in, and apologies for the delay. As usual, a little bit of technology issues. So, I think first of all, I think a big shout out to Songjuice for doing this internship event and also sort of bringing this mentorship session to life. And I think congratulations to all the interns who are going through this exposure. It definitely looks and sounds very exciting. So kudos to all of you. Before we actually dive into the topic itself, what I thought is next 30 odd minutes, I have divided the section into first I'll give a brief of my introduction so that you get to know why I'm here or who am I. And then we'll start with just what is the role of social media in today's life. And then I thought about what should be the topic of our discussion. And I thought, what better than actually thinking about a product. And in this case, I thought of product as human beings or you as professionals. So we'll look at social media's role in careers. So that's what the event or the conversation today is going to be. So about introduction about myself, my name is Amit Dubey. I've been working since a decade or so. Had an interesting to my career. I started with Indian Armed Forces, very inspired. I think at that point in time, Lakshya had come out, so everybody was excited about joining the military. But I had my reasons even before that. I'm not sure how many people know, but Field Marshal Manekshaw was my role model, and he's currently my role model. So I always wanted to be a military general. So I decided to join the armed forces. I was in Corps of Engineers for about a couple of years. Then due to a medical reason, I had to leave. Post that, I was thinking of doing something in entrepreneurship. I ended up actually joining American Express. Really an awesome company to be with. We just got rated India's second best place to work in Great Places to Work survey, renowned company which does this survey. So it is an exciting place. So I've been with them for the last 9 years or so. Currently working as a consultant for both. I lead actually large-scale operations teams, as well as I provide consulting services to teams across the globe for American Express, which is present in about 21 countries. So okay, so that was my introduction. I think the next topic, which I told you about, was about looking at your own careers as an example for how you can think about it, how it is relevant in the social media sphere. But before just that, I think if you look at social media. It's one of the mediums. It's one of the many mediums which are available for brands to tell their stories. I think, and it falls into the whole marketing purview of how you as a company, or whether you have products or you provide services, how you reach out to your audience and tell them who you are, why you're better than everybody else, and things of that nature. So within that, various channels that exist for sharing the story, such as PR, sales, different forms of marketing that exist. Social media is one of those channels, and I think in the recent times, due to the advent of technology, improvement in network solutions, etc., it's become a massive space. That's the reason why within almost just few years, look at Facebook. It's I think last night I saw the stock price. It's roughly about $330 billion company, and it's already ready to take on the bigwigs of other internet giants such as Google or Amazon. So it definitely tells you the power of social media, the amount of credibility it has got. It has, of course, other such benefits as well. So definitely, social media has become pretty important because it's a very easy space for you to connect with your audience. Within that space, what I thought is, if I look at myself, or you guys look at yourself as actually products. If you think of yourself, okay, I am XYZ and I'm a product. How do you want the people who are going to sort of come across this product? What do you want them to think about you? Because in today's world, it's people get to understand the product through the perception it has, and social media can be used as a leverage, or can be used as a platform to sort of get that communication out and share what you stand for. So now, with that background, I'll dive into the topic itself. How to look at yourself as an outcome of as a product itself, and then how do you leverage various social media platforms to go ahead and share your own story? Because if you think of yourself as a product, within this space, I actually conducted a session for one of my teams where we talked about, for example, LinkedIn is one of the professional platforms where people talk about who they are, what do they do, and it is just recently got acquired by Microsoft, huge billion-dollar deal. So it talks about it's a professional site and how important it is going to be. It is a very important site, and I think how people present themselves in these sites also talks a lot about their own thoughts, their own leadership, their own thought process. So in that space, first I'll probably just talk about LinkedIn as a social media platform to communicate about yourself, and then also talk about the other social media which also are a place where you are being presented as a product. And I think that's where people need to understand the importance of consistency of messaging. For example, if of course on LinkedIn, let's only talk about first LinkedIn. It has various aspects of sort of sharing your story. I think the first and foremost that anybody looks at a LinkedIn profile is they look at your picture. So very simple thing, but how professional the picture is depicts a lot about your professionalism. It is a professional website. It has to done in a very professional way. So I think there are some good to-dos that I have come across from various leaders across the industry, which talk about generally in LinkedIn, your profile picture should be just a headshot, professional, dressed professionally. I think that's a no-brainer. So just that gives a perception to a person that you're a professional. I mean, it's just simple things such as not having shades on, or not doing a funny hairstyle, not making different kind of faces, etc. Just a very professional headshot. I think that's a very important aspect. Again, it sort of shows your brand, and then later on talking about giving details of who you are and what you do. Um, that's very important. A lot of times I've seen people are there just for the sake of it, where they just put up their photograph and then that's it. They just write, "I'm working here," and that's about it. I think it's a very important place for you to share your story. What do you do? How are you adding value to your company? And while in the beginning of your career, it might sound like, "Hey, I'm just starting my career. Who's going to look out for me?" But what happens is your social media presence actually builds over a period of time. So when you're there, when you're presenting yourself, people will get to know you, hear you. You build a network. You know, in today's environment, everybody understands the importance of network, right? That's what a lot of these companies are getting paid for. So it's a very important way to present yourself. So it's been a monologue so far. So before I sort of jump into the next aspect of presenting your brand, I would like to see if there are any questions or any comments or anybody. Is everybody fine with the audio, etc.? I'm just going to check if there are any comments. Just a second, guys. So I just posted a question. Not sure if we can see that. Perfect. Brilliant. I saw Falak Nagpal. Thank you so much for your comment. Yeah, I think she's written that thinking ourselves as products is a very interesting way to relate to brands' way of exploring the digital marketing space. I can't agree more, Falak. And a lot of times, actually, what I've seen in my professional career, while I started as a frontline employee for McKinsey and have been able to go through various levels. In the very first year of my career, one of my director at that time told me that you have to look at yourself as a product. So no matter what, even if it is a pen like this one, what is the USP that it brings to the table? And when you're sharing that story, is that story consistent with what it stands for? So thinking of yourself as a product is an extremely important way. It has two benefits, I think. Something which you guys are doing, you can relate to it, because what will happen is you think of external products as a thing to promote or brand. For example, I have a pen in my hand, so I'll just take this example. So this pen, which is a cross pen, if this brand cross has to reach out to people, and you guys are given a task of actually going ahead and sort of sharing the story of the cross, how you go ahead and sort of tell that to everybody else what this pen stands for. Or the other example, actually, I think INS, the Indian Navy, actually just launched. I think if I get the name wrong, the INS Vikrant was the carrier, or actually one of the very important ships that India had for naval warfare, etc. They just decommissioned the ship, and Bajaj actually picked it up and they use it beautifully in the new bikes, which is I think inspired by or has the Ines Vikrant steel in it. And they did a digital campaign or digital marketing campaign around what people felt about Ines Vikrant. So what they did is they called for the old captains of Ines Vikrant, and people were talking about what was their experience of actually being the commanders of that ship. And it was just a phenomenal storytelling about how the ship, what it stood for and what it meant to them. And they said, what they said is all captains mostly said it felt like their mother, because it was in the sea out of nowhere, and all the planes which had to land, or the fighter jets who had to land, were landing on that ship. And so it was very, very important to them, and it sort of has saved many lives. So they were very emotional about what the ship stood for them, while for a general public it was just a piece of metal. But they talked about the emotions that it had, and Bajaj used that to propagate the story of how they use that steel in their bikes, so that the tradition, or anybody who's driving or riding their bike has that kind of emotional attachment, that they have a piece of very important assets that India had. So they used the digital media space to sort of share that story. I think because it was a long video of interviews, etc. And that was just absolutely amazing. So what they did to a product, and a lot of times, when we are working, we're thinking about the job and then the product that we're working on and how to promote it. If you, on a daily basis, if you think of yourself as a product, I think that's the best way for you to understand the whole marketing aspect of things, because then you start you are with you always. So that's always there. So you cannot never forget that you are your own product. So what you do with it, how you reach out, how do you share that with others, it should be a very important task, because it will help you in your professional career. Let's say you're launching a product, you're working on a product, but it also help you in your own career, because then you will think about yourself as a product, and how you reach out to different people, how you present yourself, what is the perception that you want people to carry about yourself. That will become extremely important, and it will stay as a reminder to you that anything that you do should be in line with your brand's perception. Because if you say something and you do something else, it goes against your brand proposition, and you should be watchful about that. For example, I don't want to take the company's name, but I think when the Nepal earthquakes happened, one of the companies used it as a way to in social media. They used it as a way to sort of propagate their brand, but it was taken in a very distasteful manner. It was thought of to be very immature, and I think in the professional world, a lot of times startups, when they do a mistake like this, well, of course, everybody has the authority to make mistakes, or you can make mistakes and move on. But it talks about the maturity of the brand and the product itself, and that will sort of create a dent in the positioning of that brand. So if you will apply these rules to yourself, I think you would understand how a brand actually comes to life, and you'd be much more thought through in your approach. So as I was talking about LinkedIn, the other, I have seen in professionals, in my experiences, and just my own limited knowledge, is that people tend to make these mistakes. That, well, of course, LinkedIn. So even if you get your LinkedIn right, you have to understand that all other social media platforms such as Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, other networking sites which might be out there, you are representing yourself as a brand. So anything that you say, comment, is out there for people to view and then make a judgment. And I think that's a very important aspect of marketing, because if you say a story, and if your user or the person who's sort of getting the story gets it or understands it in a different manner, then you can't blame them, because you presented the story and you might have the best intentions of what you wanted to say, but how others perceive is much more important than what the reality is. I think that's why perception, as a word, is extremely important to understand when it comes to marketing or when it comes to social media marketing, because whatever you're presenting your message. For example, if I say I'm a professional and a team player, and I go ahead and on any social media, I'm fighting with people, passing on some senseless remarks, etc., and it doesn't go with my brand. It doesn't show that it's not consistent. In one place I'm saying team player and I work together, and other place I'm displaying other things. Perfect. So I think I have a question here. The question one of my friend is asking is that there is brand building in social media. There are so many ways social media is actually making the brands vulnerable to. How do you think brands should cope up with negative reactions? I think what happened in that case of the other brand, and that's the thing. I read somewhere, earlier when social media was not there, then brands could live with these small mistakes that they did. But in today's environment, like companies like Amazon or Flipkart, and these guys understand that even Ravi 1234 Star Trek, if he or she passes a comment for a product review, that will have a very negative connotation to the people who are buying it, etc. So everybody has the power to influence the brand's perception. I think what needs to happen, and that there are many brands. What they have done is they have, whenever there have been situations where they were put under fire or some mistakes happened, I think some very interesting things that they've done, which is about how they wing it in terms of how they put a positive switch on it, a positive turn of it. Because one thing, again, if you relate this to yourself, if somebody says something bad to you or something bad happens to you, was not in our hands, because the world is very dynamic, things will happen, but an extremely important aspect. So that I think you can apply that to any situation. Like if somebody says something to you, how you react to it, can show two sides of it. If you fight back, that shows some side. If you understand maturely and deal with things diplomatically, that shows a different side of it. So you have to. I mean, if the very important aspect is to think of brands as real life. Think of brands as I would say as let's say, for lack of a better word, human beings. Think of it as a living being, and then see if a brand is going through a problem or a situation, how would a human being, how would a mature adult, how would they deal with it? And I think that's a very important aspect. And I'll tell you, I'm in this financial institution, I'm part of the whole banking organization or financial. It comes under a lot of scrutiny a lot of times, and a lot of times people have a different perception of it. But I think as a brand, what these companies continue to sort of work towards is to look at the positive side of it and react in a positive frame of mind. So, but one thing is that will happen, and I think that's what all brands have to be cognizant of, is that if you think these negative situations will not come up, I think that's not right. That's impossible. What you have to have is a team which is prepared for these negative situations, has the ability to respond, not react. So that should help in this situation. I think, Palak, hopefully I answered your question. But excellent question. Thank you so much. I think that's again sort of brings to our topic how if you relate yourself or the whole brand aspect of it to a real human being, I think you tend to understand a little more about what you do and how you should approach things. So I was giving one example, real life example actually. you know, there were, for example, I had a few of my friends who are in various leadership roles within their companies, and we were once just sitting and chatting, and one of my friends, he had a very funny WhatsApp status, and somebody brought it up, so everybody started joking about it, what he had written about himself, and it was something about how he would react. I mean, it was just probably a joke, how he doesn't want the world to know where he hides the bodies, for example. Right? He had written something like that. It was just a pun intended joke, but it was on his WhatsApp status, and everybody got talking about it, and then it became a serious conversation because while it was pun intended, but for a guy of his stature, it did what people were thinking, and as I said, I think it's a very easy thing. It's a very, if you understand it well, it's a very easy thing out there. You can control it. You can make people perceive or believe what you think or what you want them to believe if your actions are consistent, and you're able to send that message out. So that was one such example where I thought, professionally, how you present yourself through various social medias becomes a very important aspect. So I think on that note, I want to see if there are more questions coming in. So let's start with the questions. There are different. So I have Ayush Trivedi asking a question. There are different objectives for each company to explore digital space. What is the objective for American Express? Well, as a company, see, I'm speaking here as an individual, so I'm not sure, if this would be my company's perspective. But as any financial institution, I think what you in today's scenario, what you want to do is you want to tell your story of who you are, how you are adding value to your customers. So that continues to be the objective for American Express, even that we're in the digital space. We're trying to reach out to the millennials. We're trying to reach out to all our customers to be able to share with them the value proposition that a brand like American Express brings to them. So that is the broad objective in the digital space. But again, as I said, I'm not the spokesperson for the company, so for that the company could say. But it's in my personal view, what I think is that as a company, we look at both the and then of course the prospects, how we can reach out to them and share our story of how in today's world, American Express stands for trust, security, and integrity. We are able to communicate these values to them so that they could be part of our franchise. Good question, yeah. Thank you so much. But again, as I relate to, I think every brand is leveraging technology to sort of share their story. Back in the days, you had television. Before that, you had radio. There are various forms and medias that people used. But I think important aspect is, again, to think of brands as living beings. Good question. Thank you. So let's open it up for questions. Actually, I think probably I'll give other examples of how you could look at yourself as a brand when I answer these questions. Well, I don't see any other question. The last part actually of our conversation, I thought it becomes a very important aspect, is that through social media, actually, perfect. Thank you, Palak. Through the advent of social media, I mean, if you look at it, what social media has done is it has gotten people closer, or it has built a sort of network. Even in a professional sense, even if you look at yourself as a brand, One is your presence on the digital space, again, becomes very important, but it has to be relevant. That, for example, you're reaching out to the relevant people so that you're able to build a network. Even in the offline space, it becomes a very important aspect for all digital marketeers, or people who like you, who want to make a career in this space, is to make a meaningful network. I think that becomes a very important aspect, and hence the whole sense of networking in the digital marketing space, or for a brand, because if people know about the brand, the more audience you have to sort of share your story. So the networking part of it becomes extremely important, even personally. So that's something that we should be mindful of. Okay, if you have any other question, please feel free to write in the chat section, and I'm happy to answer that. Think if not, then the last segment, which my request, it's or my observation to people who are starting their careers, is I don't see many people making their presence felt on the social network. There's a professional social network such as LinkedIn. While I don't work for LinkedIn, I'm not promoting what they do, but I think humble request for all of you. It is quite useful for you to build your online presence, and use LinkedIn for that matter as well. While even when you're starting your career, you should, for example, build a LinkedIn profile. Talk about, of course, if you're fresh out of college, you wouldn't have professional experience, but any internship experience like this, you should go ahead and talk about it. Talk about how you added value to the various projects that you were on. And then give a brief introduction and brief what you did. I think that itself, again, the prospects who will be hiring you will be able to see. And anytime, even in today's environment, let me tell you, if you go ahead and give an interview, the interview is not the only section. People are looking at every aspect of your social media presence as well. So if you're out there, if you're presenting yourself, of course you write these things in your CV. Consider LinkedIn as a CV as well. So put your picture, write about what projects you've been part of, and share that online, so that people can get to know more about you as a brand. Okay, I think another question. Philip, thank you so much. Keep those questions coming. There's a question from one of my guests who's watching. As I see it now, there are thousands of small businesses that are mushrooming around the social media platforms. Is that dependency not making them vulnerable too? Because there's always a risk associated. If I understand the small business, they are on social media platforms. Being on social media, does that present a risk to them? But I think written by Larry Bostoday called Execution. There's an excellent part in it. He says, well, if you don't want to make losses, don't do business. As simple as that. That there will be a risk, but it is, as many companies have come to realize, that it is a risk worth exploring. Many of the entrepreneurs have written about, or successful entrepreneurs about it, how you should media. It's a mostly free platform for you to connect with thousands of people. I think one of my favorite books is Art of Start by Guy Kawasaki. He talked about how bootstrapping, etc., you can leverage social media to actually go ahead and share your story. So while there is a risk, but there's also it can be used as a platform for you to further your story and tell how you're adding value in your space and you're providing meaningful product for the consumer. So think of it more of a platform where you're sharing your story, but it definitely comes with its risks as well. I hope I understood your question correctly, and I've tried to give it my best shot. The other aspect, I think this, another question comes up, I'm more than happy to answer. The other dependency that comes, our friends who are entrepreneurs talk about is, should we have a social media presence or not? I think that also becomes a conversation point. Of course, when you're a technology company, it comes with it. But if you're a manufacturing company or things of that nature, is it important? And we've had our discussions. If you look at brands such as I'm forgetting the parent brand, there are companies which were small, but how they came on board in social media and sort of went ahead and shared their stories. It became relevant. People got to know who they are and what they were doing. So in today's day and age, for you to say that should you or not, I think it's a must. It's a must to be on social media because it's a great platform for you to again share your stories. Primarily free, right? Yeah, I think we're coming on top of the hour, so I'm not sure if there are any questions that will come up, but I think I enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for joining in. Hopefully this session I was able to add some value. You guys can feel free to reach out to me. As I said, I am on LinkedIn. You can find me there and write to me, and if you need any help, any support, suggestions, I'm more than willing to share that. Once again, big shout out to Songjuice for doing this. I think this is an excellent initiative, and you guys should continue to make the most of it. So that should be it from my side for today. All the very best with your internship, and as I said, make the most of it.